Hello, this is the host. Today's scary story comes from a Reddit user. It was about 4 a.m., and I was awoken in my bed by what sounded like screams in the next room. I live alone, and all of my windows were open, because it was a hot summer night. My apartment is very small with one bedroom, kitchen, living room combo, and one bathroom. There are no closets. I went into the other room to investigate and it was empty. It's also not the first time something strange happened in that apartment. When I moved in, everything was fine for about 2 weeks. Then weird things started happening. I would hear footsteps when no one was there, doors would slam, lights would turn on and off by themselves. Also, sometimes when I would be sitting in the living room, which is directly under the bedroom, I would feel the bed move like someone was getting in or out of it when I knew I was the only person in the apartment. One night I was woken up by what sounded like whispers in the next room. I went to investigate and again everything was fine. It wasn't until later that day when I found an old Polaroid camera in the closet. I took it out and the flash was stuck on so I couldn't see the pictures. I took more and they were just shadows. Then I heard a knock and turned around. There was no one there. Then one day I came home to find all of my drawers had been emptied and the dresser was completely overturned. Nothing was broken, but it was really weird, because I never had that problem before when I lived with other people. It was after that incident that I started hearing footsteps and stuff. Now back to the story. After investigating and finding nothing, I went back to bed. In the morning after, of course not sleeping at all, I got up and went to the kitchen. As I walked through the living room, I noticed something odd on the floor. It was a doll, a Raggedy Ann doll to be exact. I don't know if it's significant that it was a Raggedy Ann doll. I didn't think much of it and figured it probably fell off of some kid's shelf nearby. I picked it up and carried it to the front of the apartment where the trash bins were kept and walked away. Well, later that afternoon, I came home to find the same doll sitting on my kitchen table. At this point, I was freaked out, so I called my best friend who lives in the same city. She's the one who told me about ghosts. Apparently, she has quite the collection of ghost stories. Anyway, I asked her if she wanted to come over and maybe help me figure out what was going on. She said sure and brought over some ghost hunting equipment, which really was just a digital recorder. We placed the recorder near the doll and left it overnight. The next morning, we listened to the recording, and all we could hear was heavy footsteps near the recorder. We tried again that night, but this time we placed the recorder under the doll, and still all we got was heavy footsteps. The next day, I took the doll to a different part of the apartment, and again my friend. And I spent a night there listening to the recorder. This time we heard whispering. Now it was clear that it was definitely trying to communicate with us. I remember distinctly hearing it say, "Help me." Almost lost it then and there. But I played it cool and waited to see what else it had to say. Fortunately, it didn't say anything else coherent, and the rest of the recording was just static. My friend and I decided we needed a plan, and quickly. So we bought another doll and set it on the table with the intention of asking questions and recording its responses. We also bought a full-body mirror, which I leaned against the wall in the living room. Then we turned off the lights and sat down in the dark. And now here's the part that really creeps me out. We started asking questions, and we were getting answers. Well, kind of. It spelled out letters to form words. The first word it spelled out was no. Then it spelled out why. So I asked, "Why do you want to talk to us?" It spelled out don't. Then it spelled out want. I asked, "What do you want?" And it spelled out leave. I asked, "Who are you?" And it spelled out Billie Eilish. Obviously, we were both freaked out at this point. My friend asked, "Where are you?" And it pointed to the mirror. We looked in the mirror and didn't see anything, so we asked, "Can you show yourself to us?" And it said, "No." At this point, I was scared. All I could think about was that movie The Ring. I didn't want this thing to try to climb out of the mirror and kill us. I asked, "Are you in the mirror?" And it said yes. We agreed we should probably leave, and started to get up. It said stay, so we sat back down. I mean, what else were we going to do? And it said, "Sorry." And we heard footsteps coming closer. My friend and I both screamed and ran out of there. We didn't stop running until we were out of the apartment building. I never went back. I left all of my stuff there and rented a new place. A few days later, my friend went back to clean out my apartment and take my stuff. When she entered the apartment, the doll was sitting on the table just like we left it. The full-length mirror was gone. But when she went to the bathroom, she found it propped up against the wall. The doll was facing the mirror, and it was smiling. Its eyes were also wide open. She called me immediately, and I told her to go straight to the mirror and take a picture. She did, and the picture came out blurry, but you can definitely see a little girl in the background of the photo. My friend, of course, freaked out and threw the camera across the bathroom. When I got home a few days later to collect what was left of my belongings, the camera was gone. I searched everywhere but couldn't find it. Then I noticed that the bathroom window was open, and the camera was sitting on the ledge outside. It was completely soaked and ruined. I picked it up and dried it off, hoping that it might still work. It didn't. And I haven't seen or heard from the little girl since. I know a lot of people are going to ask, so I might as well answer now. I did try to contact the previous owner of the apartment to ask if there were any kids that lived here previously, but the apartment management company said they couldn't release that information for privacy reasons. Also, there were no news articles about a missing child when I looked it up. As for the doll, I threw it in the garbage. And now, whenever I hear a knock at my door, I always jump. Thanks for listening. If you liked this video, stay tuned for more scary stories. Also, check out my podcast. Thanks again, and see you next time.